want to thank you for joining today's presentation. My name is Glenn Johnson, and I am the Director of Operations here with ConnexiCore. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. As you may know, the audience is currently in lecture mode and muted. However, you will certainly have an opportunity to ask questions toward the end of the presentation, as well as during the presentation. If you have a burning question, certainly feel free to open the chat window within the webinar application and type in your questions and submit, and we'll be sure to address all questions toward the end of the presentation. We do hope you find today's presentation helpful and applicable to your line of work. As we realize, many of us today know that drones can generate a lot of data and imagery, but we have to ask ourselves, how do we make this drone data available to make informed and actionable decisions? How can drones help us improve our project workflows? What hardware, software, storage solutions, what's the best to use as I deploy drone technology? And then finally, how can we realize the best return on investment, or ROI, when deploying this drone technology? These and other questions will be answered for you today as we explore using drones for remote construction project tracking in real time. I'd like to introduce you to our presenters for today's session. First, we have Frank Segarra, who is the CEO and founder of ConnexiCore, with over 27 years of IT, telecom, and aviation experience. He's a Navy vet with a specialty in avionics engineering, and also a member of the 2018 and co-chair of the CompTIA Drone Advisory Council for 2018. Great fun guy. I've personally known Frank for about 15 plus years. Loves baseball, playing guitar. I've seen him do some real good rock versions of Neil Young. So if you're ever interested, give him a ring. But he's a big family guy, and he holds that very close to his heart. We want to thank Frank for joining us today and being our primary presenter. We also have accompanying us today is Randy Gluck. Randy is the Public Safety Sales Manager for CAPE with over 10 years of public safety experience, with the majority of that with the Fire Department of New York City. 20 plus years of enterprise software and services business. Randy is actually going to help introduce us to how telepresence technology using drones can be utilized within the construction arenas. Okay, so to cover our agenda for today, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to cover why use drones in construction. Okay, how can drones help us? What are some of the traditional tools that really are going by the wayside in favor of the new emerging technology tools that we have at our disposal today? How do we put UAVs, otherwise known as unmanned aerial vehicles or drones, how do we put UAVs to work for us? How do we take all that data that the drones can capture and use drones as a data service, as well as building integration management integration, okay? And, probably one of the things that we want to talk about is how we're using cutting edge technology today and really transforming the industry with inspections using drone aerial telepresence. We'll talk a little bit about ConnexiCore, your host for today. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with some questions toward the end of the presentation. Again, we want to thank you for joining, and without further delay, I'm going to introduce you to our first presenter, Mr. Frank Segarra. Frank?
Yes, hi, Glenn. Thank you for the introduction. I love the reference to the Neil Young part. For everyone out there, I love Neil Young. I played in a Neil Young cover band, and I'm just like addicted to his one-note solos. They sound like a mosquito. But good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, The Benefits of Drone Technology for Real-Time Project Tracking, specifically in construction. Again, my name is Frank Segarra. I'm the CEO and founder, and I'm taking on this personal challenge today to encourage more awareness to the value of aerial intelligence and drones that go over and above just nice pictures and really cool video. Today in 2019, drones utilized in construction have gone literally from experimental to essential for specific tasks, such as monitoring site progress for construction sites, generating accurate contour maps, and measuring stockpiles. Drones make it cost-effective and efficient to create geospatial data. So geospatial data has an actual tag on it telling people where the specific point is in reference to GPS. Image and video analysis. There's a lot of analysis that could be done using video and images from the drone, mapping services, and much, much more. And we recognize that for your business, it's not about drones. It's about having access to the critical information so you can make informed business decisions. And drones are saving industries thousands of dollars by unlocking big savings on construction projects. And we're hoping this time spent today proves to be of value for everyone. So let's get started. So why use drones in construction? So we see drones in construction as providing a value at every stage of the construction life cycle. So in its very basic format, if we were to kind of a high-level bulletize this, drones in construction improve project monitoring and automate the data capture process. So we monitor projects much faster than boots on the ground, and automating the data capture makes the drone invaluable to construction projects. We also think that drones provide a much faster method of communicating progress. If the progress is instantly captured by a drone and communicated from the drone to the project manager, to the stakeholders, it's much, much faster than boots on the ground, again, walking a job site, filling out a report, and doing those types of tasks. The drones are also very valuable in catching conflicts sooner, and that obviously would reduce downtime. So if we're seeing a trend form where a conflict potentially could happen on a job site, from a 360-degree perspective from the drone looking down at the job site, we're able to identify those much quicker. And obviously identifying hazards and how to remediate those hazards provides, less downtime for the construction site, less liability for the stakeholders. Then identifying project impacting trends. Those trends could be good trends or they could be bad trends. The good trends could help the project managers and the operations people see what's working for the site and how to replicate that on the next site. And if trends are bad, they can, look at ways to, prevent that from happening on the next project. Collaborative maps and measurements. The drones are super accurate. They provide maps via the cloud. You can collaborate, share links with other stakeholders and people involved in projects. So the drones are, automatically a collaborative tool. Job site documentation is much faster, very accurate. We could also provide live streaming via drone to remote stakeholders. And we're going to talk more about streaming video in more detail towards the end of this presentation with our partner, CAPE. So I'd recommend everyone just hang in there because it's some exciting stuff. And then we can look at erosion detection. So again, these are very high-level values in the construction life cycle. And then lastly, a drone can provide 3D models that can be fully integrated into an existing workflow for a BIM manager or an architect. So let's take a look at the construction drone SWOT analysis. So for those of you that don't know what SWOT is, it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And typically you see strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats in a business plan. It's a good way to identify how to correct things, how to improve on processes. So when we look at the SWOT analysis for drones, some of the strengths obviously are it's an out-of-the-box data capture solution, highly accurate, at a relatively low cost of entry, whether it's outsourced or in-house. There's also a plethora of drone resources available. If you look on the internet, it's amazing how many really great partners are out there with excellent software products, excellent accessories, even the drone market in general, the commercial market at least. There's been vast improvement. Some of the weaknesses in the industry, especially construction, is data processing bottlenecks. So if we look at the amount of data being generated from a drone, and you can imagine the enormous amount of bottlenecks on your network trying to get that data from the drone to the cloud, from the cloud to the project manager, that becomes a weakness, and that's being addressed by a lot of the upgrades that are happening throughout the telecom industry from 4G to 5G. Then you have airspace restrictions, that's a weakness. Then IT and data governance. So, 10 years ago, when there weren't really, drones per se commercially available, IT handled IT, data handled data. Well, now we have this kind of governance where IT and data are kind of overlapping. So within organizations, it's like, well, who deals with telecom? Who deals with data? Who deals with now this brand new technology, aerial telepresence and drone technology? So that's a weakness, but I believe that'll be overcome in the next few years. And then the opportunity, obviously, is you gain high quality video for ground crews. You can manage projects from new data sets on a daily basis. Autonomous flights. If you have a construction site and you have created a flight mission in a autonomous flight package, like a drone deploy, for instance, you can fly that same flight over and over and make it an autonomous mission. So you're capturing the same data each time you're doing that mission. And then you have artificial intelligence, object recognition. These are other opportunities for drones. And a lot of these are in the safety practices, public safety, construction, security. And then the threats. We see threats as being an immediate outcome on business ROI being very unknown. It's easy to talk about drones generating data fast and reducing project time, reducing boots on the ground. But, to prove that in an industry that is it's an old industry. Construction is a very old industry here in America as well as all over Europe. So proving that ROI is somewhat unknown, but, we often say, listen, proof of concept is where it's at. Try a drone mission, see if it works for you. If you find the right drone specialist to work with, obviously they're going to walk you through that. And then some other threats are the hobbyist operators providing substandard data. In 2016, the FAA released, Part 107, so everybody was out there getting their licenses, and there are some really great pilots out there, very competent pilots. But then there were the hobbyists, and we have nothing against the hobbyists. But when they start to enter the enterprise space and they are not familiar with generating GIS data and autonomous flights and talking in an enterprise corporate boardroom with COOs and CFOs about ROI, this becomes a threat because, once you have bad data, the word gets around that you have bad data, and then all of a sudden drones get a black eye. And then the last threat I see is regulations hampering high value projects. There are strict rules and regulations that are all for the good of man. And unfortunately, a lot of these rules and regulations provide delays in high value projects for drones. So a good drone service provider will do their research, make sure that they have the correct waivers, certificate of authorities to be able to perform a project on a site, and careful consultation with the right service provider means that you'll be treated fairly. All right, so when we talk about pre-construction, site planning, estimating, budgeting, with a drone flight, we can go into a site before a bid or even during the pre-construction and say with confidence how much dirt is actually there. So we have a little example here where we're showing a site that's being readied for construction. They've obviously dumped a pile of aggregate, looks like topsoil to me, and we want to know how much aggregate is actually there. Well, the drone helps inject that real world condition into the design and constructability planning phase of a construction site. And the ability to easily capture this site information also improves the rate at which the design could be iterated on. So as we're capturing this information and we're collaborating with our peers, it gives us an opportunity to iterate on the design. Do we need changes? Do we need more of this, less of that? Is everything going as planned? Again, we're hitting it at a very high level, but you can kind of see where this is going from an aerial view. All right, putting UAVs to work. So we talk about progress monitoring and reporting. So the drones on a day-to-day basis provide project managers the ability to conduct daily progress that is quick and pretty darn accurate. And that could be done on a scheduled basis. That could be done on a weekly basis, monthly basis. We have clients that we're working with that have us come out weekly. We have clients that have us come out monthly, depending on what the project is actually looking for. Also, with the drone, keeping track of what takes place on a day-to-day basis is key, and it allows the stakeholders to make more informed decisions based on the performance that they're seeing from the drone progress video or images or whatever it is. Might be a live stream. In addition, progress monitoring conducted via drone basically doesn't really interfere with ongoing work of the job site in the same way that other data collection techniques might. So for example, a stakeholder in Chicago needs to visit New York City to check on progress. They're going to fly out from Chicago to New York City. They're going to interrupt the super. They're going to ask for the walk around the site visit. And what it really does is it puts a damper on what's going on the job site. It costs that stakeholder money to fly out. And quite honestly, they're really just seeing things from a superficial perspective, not from a data capture perspective. So let's talk about materials and asset management. So materials and assets on a site are extremely valuable. Materials could be lumber, materials could be scaffolding, materials can be equipment, assets could be people. So real-time visual analysis can be conducted via the drone. Developers, stakeholders, and even the people on site get an engaging record of how the project is going. And up-to-date and informative visual materials produces evidence of key commitments. So, key commitments could be, well, we said we were going to get the scaffolding wrapped around the building by 12 noon on this date. And if we're doing regular drone progress monitoring and we see that the scaffolding hasn't even been unpacked yet, it's kind of, providing that key evidence of those commitments. So when we talk about asset management, in this particular case, this is a client of ours in Charlotte. And in industrial enterprises and service providers, they can now significantly reduce the travel expenses and improve personnel safety through the use of drones for this asset inspection. You see a lot of assets on this building right now. Capital projects and constructions require careful orchestration of many moving pieces, especially during the construction phase. And gathering and applying the right information to make effective decisions can eliminate project delays, cost overruns, and improve project safety and sustainability. And traditionally, site inspections involve trips to the construction site, as mentioned before. And companies would also rely on contractors to report the status on their work without an efficient way to verify that information. For example, was that new perimeter fence really installed this week, as scheduled? Look at the latest imagery. Not up to date, looks like we'll have to send someone out, and meanwhile the clock ticks and the costs continue to rise. So traditional tools versus emerging technology tools. So this first graphic, we have to take this with a grain of salt because traditional surveys have been being used for years, over 100 years. And most drone services are not survey engineers. They cannot put a surveyor stamp on it. But what they can do is assist that traditional surveyor with some of the efforts that will help reduce their costs and help their information get a little bit more complete. Obviously, a traditional surveyor, it's a time-consuming effort to go out there and to survey a 100-acre site and get it all ready for pre-construction, for bidding, for whatever. And then there's so many different channels of communication that the surveyor has to go through from the time that the surveyor sets their tripod and their Trimble down and actually starts to work the site. So to augment the surveyor's work, the surveyor is absolutely necessary, but to augment the surveyor, drone surveys and drone mapping provide, additional tools such as high-resolution aerial data sets. And these data sets can provide all the type of data sets that are required for AutoCAD importing the same type of data sets that you would use in an AutoCAD or Revit program can be done with the drone. And then obviously instant insights and communication and improved safety and inspection. So if we were to look at a traditional management method versus a drone method, on a 100-acre site, if we were to survey it with, 100% surveying tools, it may take 2 weeks, 3 weeks. if we were to look at that same site and we were to augment the surveyor with the drone technology, we're looking at reducing that site time to about 3 days. So this is very compelling ROI, and it's worth taking a look at it on a site. So the type of data that we're actually capturing, we keep talking about data. And these are some real life examples that we have here. So aerial view studies for either planning phase, pre-construction, or even marketing. In this particular site here in Pennsylvania, the builder wanted to capture the site because they were looking to sell this 40-acre area of land and promote it for some commercial stores and malls and strip malls and whatnot right off the main highway. So they want to take a look at the site. Then the drones also provide what we call a multi-layer site topo condition. So topo meaning topography. So you have multiple layers of data sets that can be produced from the drone that can provide a lot of valuable information. GIS data sets, which ultimately ortho-rectified imagery. Ortho-rectified means that every single image that was captured on this image here has a GPS coordinate, and all of these images are stitched together using very sophisticated processing software that allows us to create this ortho-rectified imagery, or what we call photogrammetry. Photogrammetry is the science behind it, and we'll cover some of that as well. We look at earthwork and stockpile volumetrics. Stockpile volumetrics and analysis and inventory, there's huge dollars involved in stockpiles. When you're working on a job site, you take stockpiles from, a QP aggregate right up to sand, right up to topsoil. There's a lot of value sitting there on the ground, and it's important if they know how much volume is there, how to actually work that volume, and what's happening to the volume as it relates to environmental conditions. Same thing as we mentioned earlier, ground assets, materials inventory, equipment management. Then we have 3D point cloud and oblique modeling. So drones have the capability of providing this very robust 3D model or dense point cloud models that can be imported into CAD drawings and really help the architect and the BIM managers collaborate on the data. It's as-built versus real built, and we'll talk about that. And then same thing with transportation route surface optimization. So if we're in a very rural area where we have a lot of inclines and we're doing a lot of earthwork cut, well, we need to make sure that as we're cutting the earth, that we have the ability now to get equipment up that incline, and being able to do transportation route optimization. The drone can identify that pretty quickly and provide information to the excavator back on how to best excavate and grade the surfaces so equipment can get in and out. And then lastly, we have elevation, digital surface, and contour mapping. Unfortunately, I have a sample here that just shows Mount Fuji, but you get the point. We're able to do contour mapping in intervals and actually create contour maps that help the project manager, the BIM managers, the architect. Everyone's working in harmony together. So we talked about photogrammetry. So I mentioned having individual images. Photogrammetry provides very high quality image data that's very easily and affordably obtained. And obviously that's through the drone. The drone takes all these images on an autonomous flight or even a manual flight, and it takes that image or those thousands or hundreds of images and processes those images through software, and they provide that photogrammetry or that orthomosaic. And the value is that each image taken by the drone is a complete record and what we call a geotag of all the site data captured within that frame. And photogrammetry software constructs the model based on the relationship between different pixels within the frame. So now we have this technology that's aerial, and we have this processing, which is photogrammetry, and we can now take all of this data from this very high resolution image data set and now construct very large orthomosaic images where we can now collaborate and annotate directly on the orthos and basically do what typical architectural drawings would provide. So we talked about drone mapping to verify construction site earthwork stockpiles and volumetrics. So the way we do stockpile measuring is through volumetrics. And volumetrics is just a science of calculating the amount of volume, both cut and fill, that is in a stockpile. And it's done a little bit more with intelligent algorithms versus the traditional laying out a tape measure, trying to get a height, trying to calculate what kind of a slope we have. If you look at the next slide here, this is an actual volumetrics calculation done in our partner Drone Deploy in their software, where we're calculating area, cut, fill, and volume. And once we've actually mapped this particular stockpile, we can see the area, the cut, the fill, the volume of this particular stockpile, and we could create a report. And we can not only create a report, we could also calculate the value of this. So if it's gravel, for instance, and gravel costs XYZ per square yard or per cubic yard, we can actually see what the value of that stockpile is. And in addition, providing detailed, accurate information about the stockpile in a small fraction of time that's required to gather this information using traditional surveying methods. So we could literally fly this stockpile in probably less than 20 minutes and produce these types of data sets very quickly. So we talk about drones as a data service and BIM integration. So BIM is the acronym for Building Information Modeling. It's what most modern day construction sites or construction managers are using. A lot of construction sites or construction companies have actual folks that are dedicated to the BIM process, and the BIM process is pretty extensive. It really helps the management of the project move along smoothly, and to have that subject matter expert involved in the project is really key. And today, the cloud allows the contractors to sync this drone data with BIM more efficiently. And this gives capabilities to construction professionals to get precise 2D and 3D outputs, identifying the potential for error before it becomes a costly fix. And obviously, this helps keep projects on time and within budget. So let's talk about the architecture, the BIM, and preservation. So architecture obviously is the core of any project. BIM is the specialist who handles the building information modeling, and then you have preservation. You have a lot of sites where you need to document construction for input into BIM. You may have to document and measure older buildings and structures for conservation and preservation purposes. Drone technology is ideal for this. Generating 3D models for visualization and view studies. Drones are widely used as a measurement and modeling tool in architecture and BIM and preservation applications. Generating elevation drawings of your existing structures. This is done very easily and quickly using drone technology. And generating rectified photographs. We talked about that before, actual geotags of facades from a single and multiple photo projects. And producing photo textured 3D models for realistic walk-bys is kind of a mesh version of a 3D model. And then surveying existing structures and objects is part of the preservation model as well. So we talked a little bit about as designed versus as built. So obviously an architect and a design team will design a structure, design a project, but is it being built as the design indicates? And there's always little fluctuations and things that will have to be altered as the project progresses. So the drone imagery and the data integration with CAD and BIM provides AEC professionals with the specific tools for gauging the project compliance and identifying where real-world construction is veering off course. And then as designed versus as built gives us the ability to pinpoint some deviations from the plan, and how does that positively impact the budget and the project delivery by reducing the costly change orders. So it's always key, and this has always been a staple in the construction industry, is looking at as designed versus as built. With the drone, it helps that process along, just like everything else that we just spoke about. So here's the construction site. I think we showed this earlier. This was several months before the site started, or before we started on the site. We did our initial fly around of the site, and with the drone's ability to map hundreds of acres in minutes and turn that input into easily navigatable data, the construction workers can get an idea of the project's progress and use that data to plan cost schedules accordingly. In this particular case, our client wanted to preserve these really nice oak trees that were on the site after the excavation was done, and wanted to incorporate this into the design of the final product when this project was completed. So doing progress monitoring, making sure that these beautiful oaks were not being interrupted was key here, and looking at the assets on the roof and looking at the assets on the ground, very key for this particular project. So there are other trade subsets. So let's talk about roofing for a minute. So drones benefit the roofing industry tremendously. If we look at a traditional drone derived map of a roof, where we're looking at the hips, the ridges, the valleys, the faces, the facades. When we look at a traditional roof survey, you know, in a property like this is a very large property. Again, this is a beautiful roof report from our partner Drone Deploy. They have a terrific roof reporting mechanism built into their software. I highly recommend it. This commercial roof survey would have taken, you know, 2 days and approximately $2,000 cost to actually survey this roof. It would have taken at least a minimum of 3 men, and the accuracy is somewhat subjective, and obviously it's very dangerous. So when you do a roof survey, whether it's a re-roof or whether you're doing a survey to identify problems on the roof, ultimately somebody has to climb up on a ladder and hang tape measures. And there's a lot of danger involved in that. There's a lot of inaccuracies. Maybe the tape measure has a bend in it. And, you know, doing it via manual labor is very difficult. It's doable, and it's been done for years, but it's very costly, very time consuming, and very dangerous. On the other hand, when we look at a commercial roof survey, which is drone generated, you're looking at, you know, approximately $600 cost. It's a 2-hour project. It requires 1 man, you know, 1 drone operator, and the accuracy is generally, we like to say, a 1/4 inch, give or take. And it's obviously not a dangerous mission. So basically, the drone does a flyover of the roof. We're utilizing the software that's available to us through, you know, various software providers. We're able to generate a roof report, and we're out of there, and we could probably do, you know, 3 inspections a day at, you know, a fraction of the cost. So this is a great area of business that are starting to see benefit from drone technology. So let's take a look at some more detail on that specific roof. So with the drone, you can quickly and safely inspect and measure this roof, and you can automatically collect high resolution roof imagery and generate comprehensive roof reports three times faster than traditional methods, and generate high precision roof reports, 3D models, and DXF files within hours. Once this imagery is captured, creating a roof report is just a few clicks away. And once your roof report is ready, you can download it, create a PDF, copy or export the DXF output, which is compatible with most architectural tools. So this was just a quick video sample of typically some of the other data we can capture utilizing the drone. Okay, so we are going to transition to our guest speaker, Randy Gluck, and we're going to talk about transforming inspections using aerial telepresence by our partner, Kate. Now, just to kind of summarize real quick, telepresence gives us the ability to do a job inspection, or maybe a specific mission critical inspection with a drone operator on remote, actually observing the entire inspection from a spectator app, and then we could take it one step further and we can give them potential control of the drone. So without further ado, I'm going to move this over to Randy, and Randy's going to talk about aerial telepresence and Cape technology.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Frank, or good morning, depending on where you are. So as Frank mentioned, we're a software provider that's a platform that's in the cloud. The quick history is that this company started several years ago out of Silicon Valley, initially in the public safety space, actually, for drone operations. And quickly we realized that there's opportunities within construction and the enterprise and inspections. So this technology is basically sort of what we're doing right now, which is where we're all watching somebody's screen, somebody has control of that screen, and we're all watching from our distant locations. And that's what our telepresence actually does for drones, and we do it in real time. It allows the live video to feed to everybody, no matter where they are, and in fact, hand off control and let somebody else do the flying. So for construction, we're talking about avoiding deviations on a project schedule, because whoever might be in charge can actually fly that drone from their office, no matter where they are. The project could be in Colorado, you could be in Texas. It really doesn't make a difference. You can have meetings with the people on site in real time and view the progress in real time by flying the drone, looking at and discussing what the drone is seeing. Again, think of it as what we're doing now. Everybody watching everything in real time. We reduce a lot of travel budgets. No longer do you need to get out of the office and actually go out to the site to do some of these inspections yourself, or have to even wait for photographs to be uploaded to a server or video to be uploaded to a server. We can actually do this as it's happening in real time. Tracking materials and preventing theft is another thing, using the drones in the air to watch over a project. And of course, preventing hazards and best practices and safety is a big part of it. In fact, safety is a big component of this platform that we developed. We actually prevent the drones from actually crashing into obstacles, buildings, trees, and so on. So there's a lot of safety built into this platform as well. So, if a project team wants to tour a facility, doing it in an on-demand fashion is certainly possible using telepresence, as I mentioned. All people have to do is just jump on and watch from an app on their phone. They can watch on a tablet. They can watch on the computer, whichever you prefer, all in real time. And this is all done through the cloud, so there's no need for putting software on servers or anything like that. The basic architecture kind of looks like this. People watching are the folks all the way on your left-hand side there that appear to be holding smartphones. The person who's flying the drone would be the person in the operations center in the orange, and this is the teleoperator. So they can be anywhere in the world, and they can send commands and signals over the internet right to the drone operator at the work site and control that drone, do flights, record video, take pictures without having to leave the office. And of course, at the top, we also have this enterprise application connection. So all of these videos and photographs that are taken and stored up in our cloud, we're just the software provider. But to do this on an end-to-end basis is really something that is why we're partnered with ConnexiCore. They can provide everything from the drones to the personnel to all these other applications that Frank has been mentioning all along. And this animated video, what you're looking at there, is actually the way the signals go. So the signal will come from the drone, it'll go out to the operations center, to other observers who are watching the live video on the feed. And this is all with about 1/4 second latency. So there's no delays of seconds or minutes here whatsoever. This is what our heads-up display, what an actual flight looks like. So this was an inspection that was done of some power lines. And what you're seeing on the left-hand side right here is the altitude. All of the telemetry from the drone is coming across the very, very top. On the bottom right corner are controls for the camera, which is the C, which to allow you to pan the camera and move it as the drone is flying, take photographs, and do recordings of the video. And in the top right corner is a map of this specific location, and this actually has its own zoom in as well. All of this that's happening, and not only is it happening in real time, so you can watch it from anywhere and control the drone from anywhere, but it's all being recorded and it's readily accessible immediately after that drone flight is over on the cloud. So you can watch a replay of all of the video feed as well as any of the photographs that are taken. A lot of safety that I mentioned built in. You saw it just a second ago, a drone that was flying. You could actually fly more than one drone in one area, in one of our geofenced areas, and the drones will not even collide with each other. or the project that you're recording or flying over. So it's a pretty powerful tool. We're the only company in the world with this technology. And we really think it's going to radically speed up projects and reduce a lot of costs. Frank?
Thank you, Randy. And we really value the partnership with Kate. It's a terrific technology. When you look at the amount of, drones alone, just drones by themselves reduce so much time out in the field and the back and forth project management. Now when you start to layer in this telepresence technology, it takes it to another level. And it's a safety thing as well, because you may be doing inspections, like whether it's a construction site or power lines, and you might be in really mission critical areas where you need a very good subject matter expert who's on the far end, who needs to give direction to either the pilot or somebody that needs to actually take control of the drone while the pilot's on site, who might be remote, because you might be looking for sensitive information where maybe you're the only person, within 100 miles that really understands a particular installation. So telepresence is going to be something that you're going to hear a lot more of. We're proud to be part of this ecosystem. So we're getting towards the end here, and I promise to not make this a commercial about ConnexiCore, which is why we did not mention anything about ConnexiCore in the beginning. But ultimately, it's our webinar, so we just want to talk a little bit about ConnexiCore, who we are, what we do. We provide turnkey commercial drone flight services, software, and consulting. So we like to consider ourselves as kind of an end-to-end solutions provider, whether it's helping you, stand up your own drone operations, or assisting you in bettering your drone operations you might have existing, or just simply flying missions for you. We do have a very carefully vetted out nationwide team of FAA licensed pilots, as well as software engineers and business process consultants. We find that, if we're very careful with the pilots that we engage with, and we work with them on a personable level, and we engage them often. We have monthly pilot calls where we communicate with our pilots and have collaborative discussions, talk about what's happening in the industry. I find this to be a good sandbox to be in with people that are trying to break into this industry as well. And coming from an IT and a telecom background, we find it's really important to have software engineers affiliated with our organization, as well as business process consultants, because this is all about business process. So it's important, and we're very proud to have that. Our management team, including myself, there's about a half a dozen of us that are part of the management team. We all have an average of 25 years of telecom, cloud, and construction technology experience. So we're very entrenched in the business in some capacity. Some of us are stronger in certain areas, but we're very proud of that. And as a company, we like to say that we specialize in geospatial data collection, image and video analysis, aerial telepresence, across a variety of industries. Our strongest industry, I would say, is honestly architectural engineering and construction. We play in other industries, but this is the industry where we are very strong. So that concludes our webinar. I hope everyone got some really good value out of it. Our contact information is here, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions. But at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Glenn to field any questions that we might have in the questions panel.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Frank. Yes, we do have a few questions that trickled in during the presentation, so I guess I'm just going to take them in order. We have one question from Joe, which we'll answer live. Is there any special software I need to see this data, or do you guys handle that? Not quite sure what he means by that, but I'm guessing the drone software.
And that's a great question. So the drone itself, depending on what manufacturer of drone, depending on what type of data we're collecting. So we're typically utilizing some type of a drone data software processing system. Let's call it Drone Deploy. If we're going to take the images from the drone SIM card or out of the cloud, and we want to create 3D images, we can actually export that data directly out of Drone Deploy and create, you know, .las models, .dxf models directly and send it over to you. Now, you as a consumer of the data, if you're an architect or you're a contractor, chances are you probably have AutoCAD or Revit, which, you know, these are common names in the construction industry. So you're going to be able to extract and take this data and import it into your own BIM process in your AutoCAD program. So I'm not sure, Joe, what your role is, if you're just a pilot or are you a consumer. But the data sets are fairly simple to acquire. It just really depends what you want to do with them.
Awesome. Thank you, Frank, for that. We do want to remind attendees, we do invite your questions, so simply click the questions button on the bottom of your application window, and you'll be able to submit any questions. We do have another couple of questions that came in. Marta does ask, will a recording of this presentation be made available? And the short answer is yes, Marta. All registered attendees will receive a link to the presentation after. We have another question coming in from Michael. I'm looking at drones in the field of archaeology. Okay, well, that's a new field. Looking at using drones in the field of archaeology among other operations. Have you ever dealt with this field before?
That's a great question. We as a company have not done any archaeological studies with drones. We've done a little bit of mining where we're doing where we're looking at elevations inside a mine and doing contours, but that's a great application. It depends what type of images you're looking for. Archaeologically, if you're looking for the images of the surface as you're getting further in, or you're looking for images from a 360-degree down view, or excuse me, 180-degree down view, utilizing a drone to create an orthomosaic of that archaeological site, not only geotags the site and puts precise GPS measurements on it, but it also will help you acquire very high resolution orthomosaic of the site. So we personally have not done an archaeological project, but we'd love to.
Okay. We have another question coming in from Marta. Do you participate in telecom antenna tower operations, presumably cell tower inspections? So short answer is yes, but Frank, I'll let you go into details. Yes,
we do. In fact, that is a very strong area for us. And we do asset monitoring on cell phone towers. We actually have a very large contract right now where we're doing in the central portion of the United States up to as many as 1,400 cell phone tower inspections. What we're doing there is we're doing what's called antenna mount analysis because the antenna or the cell phone tower industry or the cellular industry is moving away from 4G to 5G to increase the amount of network capability because of all this, wonderful technology we have out there. So in order to do that, if you think about, 150,000 towers around the United States, each one of those towers needs to be site surveyed before the retrofit of any kind of 5G devices are put on those towers. So what we're doing right now with a client of ours, I can't mention because we're under non-disclosure, but we're doing mount and antenna analysis specifically for that, for the retrofit. And we're creating data that's just image data, and we're going to be performing measurements as well as part of that data deliverable. So yes, the long answer to that very short question was yes, we're very involved in that industry.
Great. We have a question coming in from Ben Morales, and this is an area that I know ConnexiCore deals with. Do you have software that works for farming?
Yes, we do. So farming software is actually very readily available. We partner with a company called Dronify, and Dronify is what we consider precision agriculture. We're able to do, farm analysis where we can actually do surveys of agricultural environments and key in on areas that are lacking in vigor, areas that might be lacking in irrigation. we can do crop scouting and do crop counting while we're doing crop scouting on a farm. So yes, we have agricultural applications. Now, on a very basic level, if we were to use our drone deploy partner, we could also do some basic vegetation analysis. But if we're getting into real precision agriculture, Dronify is our partner for that, and they do a wonderful job and are really very good partner with helping. In fact, they even have ergonomists on staff that work with us to help clarify certain things, because when we were talking about fertilization and irrigation, I know that there's the floods going on right now in the central U.S., especially in Nebraska, I believe, is totally underwater from the flooding. There's going to be a major problem out there. So we would perform, agricultural surveys of the areas, unfortunately, for damage. And by next year, we'd be able to help, create some direction on what's necessary to, fix what's on the ground that's broken. So yes, we do work in the agricultural areas as well.
Great, thank you. Michael would like to do a little piggyback off his previous question. I will be working with an archaeology company that is interested in using drones. I will need to speak with someone offline about specific software they'll be able to use, download, and present a hard copy of data in a PDF format. So I guess that would be something, certainly feel free to reach out to Frank. We'll provide the contact information after the call, and we can continue that conversation. Okay. We have a question coming in from ML. What software, sensors, and deliverables do you use or provide in agriculture? And I think you might have touched upon that, Frank, in your previous answer.
Well, we don't necessarily sell the software for agriculture. We utilize the software as part of our ecosystem. And depending on what the mission deliverable is, would depend on the type of camera we would use. So if it was an RGB camera or a multispectral camera or even thermographic, we would just use the appropriate camera and sensor. But the software itself, so we have a variety of vendors depending on what the application is. So we don't necessarily sell the software, but we can get you, we'll say, subscribed to be able to view your project in real time and see the deliverables via the software.
Okay, great. And then we have one came in from Roy, who's asking, can you use drones for a roof infrared survey? Presumably for heat loss, AC leaks, that kind of thing. Is it what you're referring to, Roy?
Yes, the answer to that question is definitely yes. Mm-hmm. Using, very good quality FLIR cameras with thermographic sensors on them, depending on what you input, what is the signature, what is the heat signature that you're looking for? And if the heat signature is for heat loss, well, you simply do that survey. Now, when you're doing surveys thermographically, you need to do that at night because you're going to get the best data. So in order to do that at night, you need to make sure that you're working with a company that's got nighttime flight waivers to be able to perform that flight at night with thermography. But yes, thermography is used quite extensively in roofing applications. Very much, in fact, there's been thermography for years where inspectors, you've probably even seen them, they have these cameras they hold by hand and they look at a part of a roof, and they can actually tell what the temperature is on that roof and if there's any heat loss. In fact, I remember years ago when I first got married and I bought my home, I remember the inspector coming and pointing his FLIR camera, which looked like a gigantic video camera, at my chimney and checking to see if there was any heat loss, see if there was any insulation issues. So yes, the advent of the drone just took that camera off of the inspector's hands and put it on a device that flies around and communicates back to different software packages. So it's used quite extensively.
Awesome, thank you. Just a quick reminder, we do have a last call for any more questions, so feel free to type them in. Before we take, I believe we have two more questions. One from Marta asking, outside of photogrammetry and volumetry, what are other major technologies that you use?
outside of photogrammetry?
And volumetry.
And volumetrics.
Yes.
Well, the drone, I mean, in general, the drone started off as kind of this flying camera. So, you know, on the very basic surface level, the drone is capable, you know, of taking 20 megapixel high resolution images that are very cinematography-like. You know, that's a basic application right there. And the same thing with video. From the drone, you could record some really dynamic cinema quality 4K video. It might be a commercial, it might be a wedding, it could be a documentary. So photogrammetry and volumetrics is more the, we'll call it the industrial applications of typical drone work. But if we're looking at, you know, photography and cinematography, videography, the drone is second to none. I mean, you see it on a lot of really dynamic real estate shoots where the drone's getting angles that no other human can really get because, you know, you'd have to be in the air. So those are really the other applications that are kind of basic.
And great. And then we have, I think, one final question from Roy, and this is a question we get asked a lot. But as the client, are we required to have additional insurance to have drone usage on site?
That's a great question. So as the client, you're not required to have the insurance. It's the company that's providing the pilot. So there's multiple types of insurance. So we carry, you know, ConnexiCore, we carry a $5 million liability and property damage insurance policy for our drone fleet. And that's to protect the customer if, God forbid, the drone were to fly into their building and crack the glass, or the drone were to hurt someone. The client themselves, no, they're not liable for any of that. It is purely the drone service, and really ultimately at the end of the day, the pilot in charge is ultimately responsible for the safety and the reporting of any incidents on site. Even though we have fleet insurance, it's important for us to have a process in place where our flight logs are analyzed and any accidents or anything like that that happen are reported immediately to the FAA and whatnot. So it's no different than kind of an automobile claim. But to answer your question, you're not responsible for the drone insurance. We are.
Okay. Great. Okay. Hopefully that's answered everybody's questions. I see the queue. We're pretty much, we don't have any more questions coming in. So if everybody is, you know, if you do have a question, certainly you can always contact us at sales@connexicore.com, as well as, you know, you can basically review our website. There's tons of information there as well that will help to, you know, understand what ConnexiCore has to offer. However, at this point, we don't have any other questions in the queue.
All right. Well, I personally want to thank everyone for attending. I'm very proud of my company. I'm very proud of the pilots I work with. I love our customers and I love the business. So everyone, keep droning. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions. Thank you so much.